The rain was relentless, hammering the windshield of my old pickup like a vengeful drummer. Each drop a sharp accusation. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, as the tires crunched over the gravel road leading to my cabin. This plasmy slice of heaven in the Smoky Mountains was supposed to be my escape. 2 acres of pine-scented freedom, a cedar cabin with a wraparound porch, and a creek that sang me to sleep. But tonight, my chest burned with a different kind of fire. Karen, the HOA president with a smile like a rattlesnake's, had gone too far. She'd smashed the bridge. My bridge. The only way to my cabin. And for what? A petty grudge over my refusal to paint my mailbox her approved shade of mountain mist gray. I pulled up to the creek's edge, where the bridge used to be. Now, it was just a pile of splintered wood and twisted rebar. The water below churning muddy and furious. My headlights caught the wreckage, glinting off a sign staked into the ground. HOA property, no trespassing. My breath hitched, a low growl escaping my throat. Karen's doing. She'd rallied her cronies at the last HOA meeting, claiming my bridge was non-compliant with some obscure bylaw. I'd laughed it off, thinking it was just her usual power trip. But this was war. I killed the engine, the silence swallowed by the rain's hiss and the creek's roar. My boots sank into the mud as I stepped out, the cold seeping through my jeans. I could still smell the sawdust from when I'd built that bridge myself, 2 summers ago, sweat dripping into my eyes as I hammered each plank. It wasn't just a crossing. It was my independence. And Karen had turned it into rubble. Back in my truck, I sat for a moment, the weight of it all pressing against my ribs. I wasn't some rich weekend warrior with a second home. This cabin was my everything. After Mom passed last year, I'd poured my savings into this place, a refuge from the city's grind and the grief that followed me like a shadow. Karen knew that. She'd seen me at the community picnic, quiet, keeping to myself, my dog Rusty at my side. She'd even made a snide comment once, her voice dripping with honeyed venom. "Oh, Jake, this cabin's darling, but it's a bit rustic for our standards, don't you think?" I'd ignored her then. I wouldn't now. The next morning, I drove into town, the air thick with the scent of wet pine and coffee from the diner. I wasn't alone in my hatred for Karen. At the counter, sipping burnt coffee, was Ellie, the local hardware store owner. She was a wiry woman with calloused hands and a laugh that could cut through a thunderstorm. "Heard about your bridge," she said, sliding a mug my way. "Karen's been crowing about it at the HOA like she's Napoleon. Says it's about community aesthetics. Bull. She's just mad you didn't bow to her." I leaned in, my voice low. "She's not getting away with this. Ellie, I'm done playing nice." Ellie's eyes gleamed, and she leaned closer, her breath smelling faintly of peppermint. "You know, Jake, there's a county road that runs through her precious HOA land. Public access, not theirs. You could make things interesting." Her words sparked something in me, a flicker of defiance that grew into a blaze. That afternoon, I pored over property records at the courthouse, the musty smell of old paper filling my lungs. Ellie was right. The road to my cabin, though maintained by the HOA, was technically county property. Karen's little empire didn't own it. I could block it, legally, and force her to face the consequences of her own game. But I needed more than a roadblock. I needed to hit her where it hurt, her pride. Enter Tom, the wild card. I hadn't seen him since high school, but there he was, leaning against a beat-up Jeep outside the courthouse. His beard streaked with gray, his eyes still sharp with that reckless energy. Tom was a contractor now, specializing in creative solutions. We'd been friends once, before life pulled us apart. "Heard you're tangling with Karen," he said, a grin splitting his face. "Need a hand?" I didn't trust easily, but Tom's smirk promised chaos, and I was all in. Over the next week, we hatched a plan. Tom knew a guy who could build a private access route through the back of my property, bypassing the HOA's road entirely. It had cost me, but I'd saved enough for my carpentry jobs. Meanwhile, I filed a county petition to close the public road for safety concerns, citing the bridge's destruction. The paperwork was airtight, And the county, tired of Karen's endless complaints, approved it faster than I'd hoped. The road was blocked off with concrete barriers by Friday, cutting off half the HOA's access to their fancy lakefront lots. Karen's empire was crumbling, and she didn't even know it yet. I'll never forget the day she found out. I was on my porch, Rusty at my feet, when her white SUV screeched up to the barriers. She stormed out, her heels sinking into the gravel, her face redder than the sunset. "Jake, you think you can just block our road?" she shrieked, her voice cracking like a whip. I leaned back in my chair, sipping iced tea, the glass sweating in my hand. "It's county property. Karen, you destroyed my bridge, so I closed the road. Simple as that." She sputtered, her hands flailing, a strand of her perfect blonde hair sticking to her sweaty forehead. "You'll regret this. I'll sue you into oblivion." I just smiled, the kind of smile that says, "Try me." Behind her, other HOA members were pulling up, their faces a mix of confusion and panic. Karen's reign was built on control, and I'd just yanked the rug out from under her. But the real twist came that night. Tom and his crew worked under floodlights, the buzz of chainsaws and the clank of metal filling the air. They were building my new Access Ratia private bridge, sturdier than the last, cutting through the pines on my land. I stood there, the smell of fresh cut wood mingling with the damp earth, my heart pounding with something like hope. But then Tom pulled me aside, his face grim. "Found something you need to see," he whispered, leading me to a clearing. There, half buried in the dirt, was a stack of old HOA documents, hidden in a rusted lockbox. Tom's crew had stumbled on it while digging. The papers were a gold mine, proof that Karen had been skimming HOA funds for years, funneling them into her own accounts. Invoices for fake repairs, inflated contracts, even a consulting fee to her cousin's shell company. My hands shook as I read, the pages crinkling under my fingers. This wasn't just about my bridge anymore. This was justice. The HOA meeting the next week was electric. The community center smelled of stale coffee and desperation, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Karen stood at the podium, her usual smirk faltering as I walked in. Tom at my side, the lockbox under my arm. The room went quiet, the air thick with anticipation. I didn't say a word at first, just set the box down with a heavy thud. Then I started reading, my voice steady but laced with fury, each document a dagger. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face drained of color, her hands gripping the podium like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You can't prove anything," she finally snapped, but her voice trembled, a crack in her armor. I held up a bank statement, her name circled in red. "This says otherwise." The room erupted, voices shouting, chairs scraping. Karen tried to bolt, but Ellie, bless her, blocked the door, her arms crossed, a grin like a wolf's. "Sit down, Karen," she said. "We're not done." By the end of the night, Karen was finished. The HOA voted to remove her, and the county sheriff was already on his way, tipped off by Tom. I stood outside as they cuffed her, the red and blue lights flashing against the pines, her protests fading into the night. My new bridge was done, a solid arc of cedar and steel, leading to my cabin. I crossed it that night, Rusty trotting beside me, the creek song softer now, like a sigh of relief. Standing on my porch, I looked out at the mountains, their peaks sharp against the starlit sky. The air smelled of freedom again, of pine and possibility. Karen had tried to cage me, to break me, but I'd built my own way out. And in that moment, with the wind whispering through the trees, I knew sometimes you don't just fight for what's yours. You fight for what's right. And you win.